Hi all, back in again. Early update I think after the Wagon 1, but there we go, we're back on the Class 2 now. Full steam ahead as it were, pardon the pun. So what have I got to show you? There's quite a bit that's come through. A parcel today from Ed again, from Model Engineers Laser, so thank you Ed, top job as always. It's just reminding me I need to pay the invoice, but that's a different matter. So before we go into the Class 2, you might remember from my wagon video I had a bit of a gripe. And the gripe was, and you probably heard Mike from EKP, Mike, however he wants to be announced as, he gets sick to the back teeth of what can only be classed as keyboard warriors. The types of people that are quick to comment on something but they've never made anything. But I know that the person that made this comment on my picture, I know he's made plenty, and I thought he was bigger than that, than to make some snide comment. And what it is I put a picture on my own personal Facebook of those. So that's the first set of tender wheels, as you can see. And what he was on about was all to do with this part in here. Yeah, saying about the root radius and everything like that. Now, I know these are right, and I'll tell you for why. Because I've got one of those. Now this would have been bigger. It would have been longer, so you could do your back to back and everything, but I've chopped it off so I can use it when I'm profiling the wheels in the lathe. And it fits in absolutely bob on. Okay, so if I was wrong in my root radius profile and all the rest of it and the flange shape, then that's wrong. So if that's wrong, that's come from a supplier that's done that to 7¼ gauge standard. So it really got my back up a bit, because I don't know how you can tell from a picture of a wheel that's, however it's facing on the bench, how you can tell that something hasn't got the correct 332 radius here and a 16th and an 8th there and all the rest of it. You can't. So to that person, I'm not going to name him on here because he'll know who he is if he watches this. If you're going to make a comment that you prove you're right and everyone else is wrong, keep it to yourself. I don't want to hear it. And other model engineers that try hard in their workshop also don't want to hear it. So to any keyboard warrior, but particularly him, keep your neb out, go back in your own workshop and make something. And if you can't make something, then just keep yourself off bloody the internet. Because people like me and other model engineers that are just doing a hobby they enjoy don't need crap like that. They don't need your verbal diarrhea at all. So anyway, that's me done on that subject. Right. Update. Where can we go? Where can we go? So obviously you've seen the first wheel set done. Second set is, one's in the lathe, one's already machined to 7¼ gauge standard profile. The next thing I'm going to show you, and I'm going to try and do in the editing, I'm going to try and put a picture on while it leaves me talking. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. I might have to cut this off, put the picture on and then carry on talking afterwards. I do all my editing through my phone, and my editing thing on there is very basic. So what I'm going to show you first off, now I remember from last time I got these little puppies, yeah, the spring hangers. My bloody, every time I film on here I seem to get a runny nose, I don't know why. Anyway, so remember them. What I've just had come through today is something I noticed on a full-size engine, and it's something I wanted to add because I've seen it on a full-size engine. But also as well, it's a kind of one of those little visible details that you go, oh, that's quite neat. For those that know what they are, that's quite neat. He's included that on his engine. And that's these. Now this piece sits above the spring. Now there'll be a rubber pad as well in there, and I'm going to put the picture on of the full-size one. So I'm going to do that now for you to look at. So you can see there, there's a hole in it. Now I've had these laser cut, as you can tell. And what these do, that's it before I start. Yeah, no holes in it, okay. What this does, this sits on the inside. Let me see if I can get some light on it, in the inside there. And what I've done, let me take that out again. What you can see, there's two holes. There's one at this end. Let me bounce the light off it. There we go. There's one at that end and one at that end. And you think, well, why is it double drilled? Yeah, because that's only got a hole in one end. Now what I've done that for is, if you looked at the picture, and especially from the top, the casting on a full-size engine has two holes in it. And the only reason I can think why they were done that is so that they can fit on the tender anywhere. So if it was one end of the spring, yeah, say that end, that pad could be put in at that end. If it was this end of the spring, that would be flipped round the other way and sit that way. Get what I mean? So unfortunately I haven't started the springs yet because I'm a long way off it. But if I try and remember in a number of weeks time, because I'm stripping the frames down at the minute, if I remember in a number of weeks time when I start doing the springs, this will all become clear when the spring hangers get riveted on why they are double drilled, so that will fit up in there. You can see that. The spring will then press against it, and I'm going to put, it might not work and it might work. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that shape out of a piece of inner tube, bicycle inner tube, and put the inner tube in there, sandwich that in, and then what goes in at this end, yeah, to hold all that in, there's a little like hook shape. What I can only describe as, it's a thread at the top for a nut to go on, and it's got halfway down it, it's got like a piece of angle welded to that hook, and when that goes through, the angle holds that up. It stops it from twisting, yeah, and the nut obviously goes on top and it pulls it all up. And what that does is then when if the weight comes off the tender, the spring can't just drop down and fall out. That makes sense. Probably doesn't, because it's hard to describe really with holding it like this. But when the time comes, I will obviously cover that on what these are for and the little hook that's going to go in and stuff. Years ago, we didn't do that bit, but I had a different spring hanger back then. Years ago on the first class 2 I did, we made the little hooks with the nut on top to add the detail. And I always remember it because I remember my dad bending the hooks and putting the thread on and stuff like that, and thinking, oh yeah, must remember to do that on this one. But I looked more into it and got more detail of it so that I could put the twin bolt holes in that. So now that, once it has its 4 holes drilled in the back, skim off, that's then ready for riveting straight onto the frames. As I say, the frames are... Okay, so a bit of a cock up in a nutshell. Let me just move that light. It's not even that light, is it? It's that one above me. Bit of a cock up there, and the reason for that is my microphone packed in working Have I got that bloody glare on the thing? Never mind. Anyway. Oh, that's annoying, isn't it? Can't get rid of it. So what we'll do, we'll turn that light off altogether. Like that. There. A bit moonlit now. Let's turn that one that way. Right. Let me see if I can sort this lighting out. So anyway, what I was saying was, my microphone packed in halfway through filming. So what I'm doing now is I'm just going to cover what I did before, or what I was rattling on about before. So we covered the spring hangers. Frames are coming apart. The dreaded rust's got to the front drag box. Now, Ed put a comment on my last video, and he goes, very strange phenomenon that. I've had something welded and the rust has attacked that, but nothing else. And I've got the same. It's not attacked the frames, but it's attacked that front drag box. So, bloody strange phenomenon that. I don't know what's going off. So now I'm trying to remember what I was up to with it's what I was saying in the first video, in the first part of the video, which got no microphone on it. So what I'm going to try and do is keep an eye on this microphone and make sure it's still charged up. Yeah, so frames are coming apart. Drag box is going to get its bit silver soldered to it. Upper stretcher is going to get some silver solder on it. Front drag beam's going to get finished off. It's got the angles to go on the inside here and up here. And then that's going to get a lathering of primer to keep that damn rust at bay. What else have I got to show you? I'm whizzing through right quick now because I can't bloody remember what I was prattling on about before. So I know it was half an hour's worth of nonsense. But anyway, digressing. So you knew from the last video that I'd done the started the horn guides for the frames. I'm milling up another stick ready to do the two on this one, and then I've got obviously the front set to do, and then they're all done apart from getting that detail in. Now, I said before I was trying to get a detail for the rubbing plates, what would have been the rubbing plates on full size, but I want the detail on the outside. I've managed to get that done on one. I don't know if I showed you in the last video, I can't remember because I haven't watched the last video. So I've managed to get the detail going on to the inside edge. There's still a grease port to put in here. Now that leads me on to something that I saw Michael Jack do for the 5-inch BR standard 3s that he's doing, and he managed to profile a lathe tool to cut what can only be described as a miniature grease nipple. Now he's got capabilities way beyond what I have, but I'm going to try and do the same for 7 1/4. I don't know why I'm trying to put that in blind from over here. I'm going to do the same for this to put that grease port on the face of that, so it's got it, but also because of this bit. Now this is it's omitted completely for Dick Stockings' engine, so you won't find it on your drawings if you've got the drawings. This is the rubbing plate that goes above the axle box, so the axle box will be down here. The horn guides would be where my thumb and my first finger are. So that sits on the top like so. I did have one done previously, but it was too thin. It was done out of 3mm plate and it's a bit thin. So I've had them cut out of 4mm or 3/16, 4mm. And this is going to have a bit of work done to it. So it's going to have some bits silver soldered on these wings here, there and there, to give it extra thickness. And then if you look at the profile of it, it's slightly flat in the middle here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to center that in the milling machine. I'm going to hold it in the vise. I'm going to center that in the milling machine and drill and tap it Now I know it's very thin, but it's only going to have something like a 10BA in there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to profile the nut of the head of the 10BA to make it look like it's a grease nipple. Hopefully, fingers crossed. And that's going to sit in there, and then that will be a visible detail, because obviously the axle box will be below it with a Timken cover on, which will be all nice and painted. It'll draw your eye to it. So to see that added onto an engine will be like a nice touch. A bit like the old spring hanger with the hook in the back. It's a visible detail that you'll see, and it's just a nice little touch to it. So as I say, we've received those spring hanger plates, and then I had obviously a load of those profiles done, and then these are the little tabs that I've got a silver solder on. Providing I can hold them in place on the ends of there, and it will just give that look. That would have been originally cast on the full-size engine. So what I'm going to do is obviously fabricate it out of steel, and then once it all goes together and the axle box goes underneath, it'll have a layer of grease between the two, so that that'll be greased and the rubbing will be rubbing without me having to actually put a proper grease nipple in there. And then what sits, here you ask, what sits on top of that? Well, if you imagine that's the buckle of the spring, so it'll sit like that, but there'll be a cylinder shaped piece that stands that up off it slightly, like so. So that's what that's for. Now I'm not using this buckle is actually from the first Class 2, one me and my dad did. I'm not using this buckle. This is should have been 5/8 across there, and it's 1/2 inch. It was one that was made as a bit of a suck it and see type of thing. So, but it gave me an idea of the sort of shape I'm looking for and stuff. As for springs, I hear you ask. Now I'm going down the route of springs. I'm going to do leaf springs. I'm not doing a cast aluminium with a coil in the middle of it. Now this might spark a bit of a debate, and I hope it does, to be honest, because I don't know how much to temper the springs, because I don't know how much weight it needs to deflect and all the rest of it. What I do know from, and I keep harping on about this previous Class 2, from the tender that we did, the springs in that were working leaf springs, and I know for a fact that they were not tempered. Now if you remember from the history lesson I gave you, when that got stolen, it went around the bloody world or whatever, and I saw it on a video that it was being used as a driving truck. That means that someone sat on it, and sat on it for a length of time. Now if those springs were not tempered and someone's used it as a driving truck, and probably a lot of people use it as a driving truck, when I got it back, the springs had not flattened. They'd still kept their shape. So how many of the leaves do I need to temper, if any? I knew I need to do some, because I'm sure over time they will eventually flatten out. But how many do I do? And this is the thing, because I'm not 100% sure. It might be a very expensive experiment where I make up the leaves. I think there's 13 leaves, 16 thick, 6 inches overall, I think they are. I haven't got my steel rule in here, so I can't just measure a bit the distance. I'm sure it's 6 inches on the frames between the spring hangers. So if it's a 6-inch long top leaf, and then it comes down in increments from there, the last one's about 3/4 long or 1 inch long. So there's 13 leaves there, 1/16 of an inch thick. You know, how do I work it out? On what? I don't know. You've got to take an average bloke. He weighs, I don't know. What's an average bloke weight now? Well, 18 stone, 16 stone. That carried over the 3 wheel sets, or the 6 springs. How do we know what to what to temper them by, or how many leaves do you temper? You know, do you just do the top 4, you know, so it holds its shape and it's still got some give in it? I don't know. But anyway, I'm a long way off that. So, but it's something that, you know, if I see you at a show, or, you know, you find me a message on here, you know, and it just sparks a bit of a debate about it. Of, you know, you might have had experience of doing it on your own engine, and you're going, well, what worked for me was I put in, I don't know, 10 leaves of Tufnell, and then I did 4 leaves of spring steel, which were tempered, and that gave me the right deflection. It'd be interesting to find out. So if you know somebody, you know, let's spark that conversation on. Let's get, because I need to know. Otherwise I'm going to do it the hard way, which is make a load of springs, whack them in to begin with, sit on it, see what it does, and then work it out from there. I'd prefer not to do the expensive route and do it that way, but if I have to, I have to. So there we go. So I think I've shown you everything. Shown you my wheels. Frames, as I say, I'm taking them apart. Horn guides I'm working on. Spring hangers I'm working on. Brake hangers I'm waiting on. Axle box material I'm waiting on. Wheels I'm working on. There's a lot going on. You'll also notice as well on Facebook, I put out a post today about the Smokebox saddle. Now, that is a complicated drawing in full size. I could understand how they did it. I've worked out where everything is and everything like that. But again, harping on about the Dick Stockings drawing, the Dick Stockings drawing didn't have an elaborate Smokebox saddle the way I want this one to have. Michael Jack has been able to successfully make a replica Smokebox saddle for his 5-inch standard 3s, with a Lost Wax cast Y exhaust Y through it, which is going to have the 4 ports into one. I've not seen one, excuse me with me runny nose again, I've not seen one successfully in pictures like what Michael has done in 7 1/4. Now I'm looking at it going down the route of having it all TIG welded together, because I know from the guy who did my drag box, I know a guy who can TIG weld very well. So my thought process was to have the sheet material made up for him so he could TIG the Y piece together, and then we could layer up the saddle as it progresses, and he can TIG the whole lot in one go. But I worry that it's going to warp as he does that. You know, I'm going to have machining allowance on the sides of it, because where it sits on the frames, you've got to machine a groove in it as such at the top, so it sits on top of the frames at the top, but it sits in the frames at the bottom. Anyway, very complicated, but you'll get the idea when I get to it, of trying to replicate what's on the works drawings. I am still kind of toying with the idea of overlaying the Dick Stockings to my new drawings. Only reason I'm doing that is because I've got patterns for the cylinders and the motion brackets and stuff like that, and I don't want to just disregard those patterns, because it's cost me a lot of money, plain and simple. So if I can utilize my patterns but keep it to what full size looks like, brilliant. If I can't, then I can't, you know, and I'll have to go down the route of having a different pattern done. But if I can, and I can get the cylinders cast and it works without creating too much of a headache between the 2 drawings, then brilliant. But I have to draw everything
to see if it's going to work. Why not on provisional look today, my cylinders will fit correctly in the size of the smoke box saddle. Just that my cylinder castings have a back plate bolted to them, and then they're bolted to the frames, which stands them off a little bit, which full size had a kind of looking of a back plate, but it was all part of the casting. So I don't know, again, I've seen Michael Jack's standard 3 cylinders. I'm thinking, well, if he could do that in 7 1/4 for a class 2, that would look amazing, because then it would be an exact replica. The only thing is with that, it's not going to be cheap, and I've spent the money on the patterns already years ago, obviously, but it's still, it'd be dead money, if that makes sense. So anyway, we're digressing. Give me some idea what you think about the old springs. It'd be interesting to hear people's thoughts on that. I'm not up to that part yet, but it is in my mind's eye of getting the spring steel soon to start to make up one of the springs. Just as well, because I'm going to get to the point where I'm going to, especially when the axle box material turns up, the horn guides will be done and on and things like that. It'll want to start to be thinking about sitting it on some wheels. Obviously I'm waiting on the brake hangers, but they're not going to take much machining and that to rivet on. So talking of brake hangers, got a brake beam done already. So I had a laser cut beam done, and then silver soldered 2 threaded, well, just the ends are threaded for the nuts to go on. Silver soldered those into the beam. Now it's not true to full size. I'm kicking myself a little bit about that, but I've done it now, and I'm not going to waste the money and having it all redone, because it's going to sit underneath the tender. You're not really going to see it. So that's the first one of those done. I've got the other ones done. I've got some yokes and links from Ed as well. Which are those? They're not like full size either, so that's why I was kind of kicking myself a little bit. I went and bit the bullet and had them laser cut, and it wasn't until I proper looked into my drawings and went, I shouldn't have done that. Never mind, I'll use them. So as I say, it's hidden under the tender. You're not really going to see them, and as long as the brakes work, who cares? But that's the only sacrifice I'm going to make on this now, I think. Everything else will keep trying, as I have been doing, trying to copy what the full size did. So yeah, I think that's it. I think we're up to date. I'm going to try and keep these videos coming through quicker if I can. Get some workshop time. Normal work has quietened down a little bit, only a little bit. I know people are asking a lot about wagon building and stuff, and I will do some wagon building videos very soon, because I've got lots of buffer stocks to use up, axle boxes to use up, laser cut parts to use up. So I have got some wagons in the offing. I want to get that corpse wagon back on its wheels soon. You'll remember from ages ago, ages ago, I'd already done a wheel for it. So I've still got 3 more of them to do yet. So, but I'm determined. Now I'm just doing stuff for myself. I'm more, I don't know, I'm feeling a bit more enthusiastic again. The pressure's off. I ain't got to come out here to get something done. I can come out here at my leisure. So lots to do, lots for you to tune in on. But yeah, thanks ever so much for watching. I'll put the between the two halves, I'll put that picture on. Well, you'll see it go on because it'll be going before this. Anyway, I'm waffling. Cheerio, everyone, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks very much. Oh, like us, subscribe, tell your friends, your mothers, your aunties, your uncles, and all them. Tell them all. Get into model engineering. It's good fun. See you later.